Are you ready?
Yeah.
When I say you're ready, there's nothing to prepare or nothing to,
I
have to
have
really.
sort of prepared. I hate being put on a spot, so I'm not.
And again, just more um, for Luke's sake, it's the hot seat is an idea to, rather than doing a formal presentation, it's an informal chat to get to know another member in a more kind of relaxed atmosphere. So the word hot seat quite often I think scares people. The idea of it's not really that bad. So Linda, in 10 words or less, how would you explain to the rest of the group, assuming we don't know what you do, but we do,
Sure.
how would you explain what your business is and what you do for customers?
I got it into 8. So bring global productivity expertise to the SME sector.
Okay.
Not many verbs in there as to what I do.
It's trying to fit it onto Twitter in 140 characters, but brilliant.
Exactly.
Okay. And in terms of your business and what you do, what would you say if you had to single down one particular challenge you've got right now? What would you say is that one challenge that you've got?
It's the lead generation. For me, historically, before we went into lockdown, I always captured the sort of my prospects' attention through sitting down at networking events with a cup of coffee at the breakfast table or the lunch table, and allowing them to start telling me their problems, bit of an agony aunt process. And once we were sort of got into that conversation, and I would be sort of probing questions and keep digging until they realized there are ways out of the issues that they perceive are insurmountable. And that would vary, 9 times out of 10, that would lead into my then initial consultation, which I used to offer completely free of charge. I've changed my sort of onboarding process quite a bit over the last 6 months. I've been using the lockdown period, hopefully more constructively, to completely reproductize in the light of my 6 years experience. Still a bit of an infant. So yeah, it's the lead generation, hence my interest, when you and James and Steve started talking about the Maxis group. That was what piqued my interest. So it's just that lack of face-to-face contact at the moment. I'm finding working in breakout rooms, for example, even with like just 2 or 3 of you, or well, 3 of you in the room, you can't really have that one-to-one conversation and get that same social interaction over a Zoom call. So that's what's been, in my mind, failing me miserably.
I completely agree with that. And even from my own business, my greatest conversion rate was a cup of coffee at Costa and a bit of a chinwag, and an hour and a half later they were prepared, ready to go. So with my marketing hat on, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a challenging question around that. When you say lead generation, for me, lead generation is getting people to sit down with you, and conversion is getting them to sign the dotted line, if you like. Is it really lead generation, or is it conversion, or is it both?
It's getting in front of, and I know, one of your questions here is, who is my target audience?
Yeah.
Getting in front of that sweet spot target client. So that is where, in the first 2 or 3 years when I incorporated Alluxi, I was going to every single breakfast, lunch, evening, networking events in every single possible forum in Kent. I will qualify, I tend to only want clients in Kent or around the home counties, the borders of Kent, for reasons which are personal to me. And finding that person who has the business at the point of its growth and its sort of development and evolution, where they have reached the edge of their knowledge on how to run a business, and I can then become useful to them. It's quite a rare person. I'm going to walk into a room of 120 people and maybe find 1 or 2 who might fit the profile that I'm looking for. So that initial 2 or 3 years of going to all of these networking events, I then started to get a bit more focused, and I did use the services of a really strong marketing strategist who gave me permission, if you like. And this is where it's the fear of missing out makes you just keep going and keep going and keep going and getting to some of the most ridiculously useless forums, through no fault of theirs. It's just that's not my target audience. And I had to start feeling less fear of not going to the women, the women, Mid-Kent women and women, ladies who latte, because these were ladies sitting around their kitchen tables making their cupcakes and sewing their, pretty little things that should really be going into crafts fairs and school fetes. They were not going to be able to afford to work with me. And I had to realise that there's no point keep spending so much time going to those sort of networking forums. So it has been, that the hardest challenge in the longer run is working out where would I meet my ideal client. And one thing that did evolve, and I started to recognise is, and this is where I now develop very strong relationships with a lot of the accounting firms, because accountants, I do not compete with accountants. And I have used the phrase that if you take care of the KPIs, the pounds look after themselves. So where the accountants are working at very much sort of financial, annual budgeting, monthly financial results, I take that information and translate it into what does that mean operationally for the business. So they get it. And building relationships with the accountants has been one way to get referrals and introductions into clients who are the right sort of size, the right mindset, they're in the right place mentally in terms of the business owners. So that's how I completely changed my marketing approach, or my networking approach specifically. I won't confuse the two words. And that in that third and fourth year, I'm a bit of an anal OCD person. I monitor through a little app on my phone how much time I spend on everything, because that's what I am. I'm a numbers person. It's an hours tracker. Not least, obviously, I started using it to monitor how much time I was spending with each client, just to make sure that I wasn't sort of undervaluing myself, and I wasn't to be able to then tweak my pricing and my fee structure. And that between years 3 and 4, my networking hours reduced by half and my turnover doubled. So yeah, that's my biggest challenge right now. So not being able to get out has been a frustration.
Okay. And based on what Steve's just said about the primacy and recency and remembrance stuff, I heard the word Kent there, and people in the Kent area, but give us an idea, that not all of your target audiences, but give us one for all of us to kind of take away and remember. So people in Kent, what sort of job role and what type of business or industry would we possibly be able to help you with, in terms of maybe we've got contacts or maybe we know someone who could help out? Can you give us an example?
I am not industry specific. If anybody has looked at my website, I've worked in well over 70 companies in more than 20 industries. My speciality, my expertise is in business administration and business management, and getting people to work more productively. So if the business has got people in it and a salary base, which there's not many, I've only been to 1 or 2 big corporate organizations where you've got one operator managing a multi-million or billion-pound plant. And if they go off sick, they just bring down the MD. But the profile of the ideal client for me is the business owner who's probably been running their business 5, 6, 7+ years. They've reached a point where they can no longer manage that business by themselves. And, some business owners can have 20, 25 employees and still be managing everybody on their own, but they're probably then not having the time to work on the business. It's that Pareto 80-20 rule. So the guys or the girls that are doing their 60, 70-hour weeks, they're losing their work-life balance. They don't have their first sort of supervisory or managerial functions in the business, or if they have, they're probably still pretty informal, and they haven't defined and rounded off what is the system that they're going to use to ensure that they're still keeping their finger on the pulse of the business, so that they're not feeling like they're losing control of their business. They can still feel in control, but they need a system to do that, so that they can sit on the beach and do their, what is it, the 4-hour manager or something, or the 1-minute manager. That is where I come in and help them. And I referred to it earlier as my business DNA program. Is let's get the business, the DNA, the genetic code of the business that's going to make it a turnkey solution. And going back to Luke's comments, I was interested to hear about you help businesses exit. If you've got your business systems in place, that is part of that adds value to the multiplier of the business. And funnily enough, Luke, what you were mentioning, I'm doing a seminar in a face-to-face seminar in September called "Will Your Business Still Deliver Your Golden Nest Egg?" So you might be interested. I don't know where you're based, but you might be interested in coming along on that. So yeah, it's those business owners who really need to start sharpening up the way the business works to be able to absolutely optimize that productivity and maximize the profitability. And they probably don't know that they've got so much opportunity in the business. Because they're happy with what they've got, but it probably has a massive amount of latent potential that hasn't been realised.
Okay.